Friend Mom's Concealed Relationship That Almost Stayed Secret. Part 1. The beginning, I never expected her to remember my name, let alone the way I take my tea, or the fact I always pretend to check my phone when I don't know what to say. It started quietly. Most things that matter do. Every Thursday evening, I'd stop by Samir's house after work. Not for anything special. Just noise, really, TV murmuring, his gaming headset chatter, something to fill the apartment silence waiting for me back home. His mom, Farah, was usually in the kitchen around that time. Nothing dramatic, just normal life sounds. Cupboard doors, kettle clicks, the low hum of the exhaust fan. She was in her mid-40s, maybe a little older. I never asked. She carried herself like someone who'd learned not to rush. Measured movements, soft voice, eyes that didn't dart around like ours did. I noticed that before I noticed anything else. One night, Samir got stuck late at work. Almost left, but she said stay. Tea's already made. It'll go cold otherwise. So I stayed. We sat at the dining table, not facing each other directly. Slight angle. Safer that way. I kept folding the corner of a napkin without realizing until it tore. She noticed, but didn't mention it. You always take 2 sugars, right? She asked. I looked up. Yeah. How'd you? She just shrugged. You've been coming here since college. Some things stick. It wasn't flirtation. Not even close. Just attention. The kind you don't realize you've been missing until it's there. After that, Thursdays felt less like killing time and more like arriving somewhere. Samir still dominated most evenings, but sometimes he'd step out for a call or run downstairs, and those small gaps would appear, awkward, quiet pockets. We filled them badly. So work okay? She'd ask. Yeah, busy. I never knew what she knew. Sometimes our eyes met a second too long. Not romantic movie long. Just enough that one of us looked away first. Usually me. Once her. At home, my phone stayed mostly silent. A couple group chats muted. Messages I typed and erased. You up? Wanna hang? Never sent. It wasn't sadness exactly. More like an used conversation piling up. Then one Thursday it rained. Heavy, sudden rain. Samir texted he wasn't coming back till late. I stood near the door, unsure. You'll get soaked, she said. Wait it out. So I did. We ended up talking about ordinary things, grocery prices, a drama she was watching, how my mother kept forwarding motivational videos I never opened. At one point, she laughed quietly, then covered it with her hand like she didn't want the sound to travel too far. I caught myself watching her hands after that, the way she held the mug. Steady, warm. When the rain stopped, I said goodbye too quickly. Almost bumped the chair. Good night, Beta, she said automatically, then paused. Good night, I yawned. That correction stayed with me longer than the conversation. Later that night, I was home, lights off except for my phone glow. Another unsent message sat in my drafts. Not to her, just nobody. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Hope you reached safely. And next time, don't rush off like that. Tea tastes better when it's finished. No name. Didn't need one. I stared at the screen a long time, thumb hovering, not sure what replying would start, or what it might quietly undo. I didn't reply to her message right away. Not because I didn't want to, more because I wasn't sure what tone was safe. Casual felt fake. Honest felt complicated. I finally wrote, reached. Tea was good. Sorry I rushed. She responded a few minutes later. No need to apologize. Quiet houses make people leave faster than they should. That line sat with me. I read it twice, maybe 3 times. After that, texting became occasional. Nothing dramatic. Weather comments. Samir updates. Once she asked if I found a better tea brand yet, because she remembered I'd complained about mine tasting like warm cardboard. I smiled longer than the joke deserved. But Thursdays changed. Subtly. Samir started noticing. You and Mom talk a lot these days, he said once, not accusing, just observing while scrolling his phone. Just normal stuff, I said, which wasn't entirely untrue. One evening I showed up earlier than usual. Samir wasn't home yet. I almost turned back, but she opened the door before I knocked properly. Oh, she said softly. Not surprised. Just aware. I hovered near the entry. I can come back later. You already came, she replied. Yeah. We fell into an easy silence while she prepared it. I watched the small routines, rinsing cups first, tapping the spoon twice against the rim. Familiar now, comforting in a way I didn't question too closely. That night, she shared something small. Casual voice, but it landed heavy. Samir thinks I handled the divorce better than I did, she said, eyes on the kettle. Kids don't need to see everything. I didn't know where to look, so I watched the steam. Were you alone long? I asked. A while, she said. Then after a beat, long enough to get used to it. That should have been the end of it. Safe topic closed. But my mind started doing its annoying thing, imagining alternate versions of conversations, futures that weren't mine to picture. Her laughing at something I said years from now. Samir noticing too much. Someone else noticing first. Risk crept in quietly. Not scandal, just the kind that shifts how people look at you. Later, while carrying the tray to the table, she nearly dropped a spoon. I caught it midair, reflex more than anything. Our hands brushed. Barely a second. Neither of us commented. But she didn't pull away immediately either. Just steadied the tray, eyes flicking to mine, then down again. There was a tiny smile there. Not romantic. Not maternal either. Something in between that didn't have a comfortable label. Samir arrived soon after, loud as always, breaking whatever that moment had been trying to become. Conversation reset. Safe topics resumed. Still, on my way home, I caught myself replaying that brief contact. The weight of it felt disproportionate, like my brain had quietly underlined something I wasn't ready to read. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because for the first time in a while, it felt like someone noticed I was there without me having to prove it. Friend Mom's concealed relationship that almost stayed secret. Part 3. Heightening suspense. Things didn't suddenly change. They rarely do. It was more like a chair, slightly out of place. You don't notice until you keep bumping into it. Samir started working later shifts. Thursdays weren't guaranteed anymore. Sometimes he'd text last minute. You guys hang if you want. I'll crash later. You guys. That phrasing stuck. I began spacing my visits out. Not consciously at first. Just delays. Extra errands. Sitting in my car a minute longer before knocking. It felt safer to miss a week than to explain why I didn't want to. She noticed, of course. Busy these days, she asked once, handing me tea. Yeah, work's weird. Half true. My eyes stayed on the cup. Steam gave me something neutral to focus on. She nodded, but not fully convinced. That happens. Silence followed. Not uncomfortable exactly, just fuller than before. Like both of us were holding extra thoughts we weren't unpacking. Then, a small complication. Samir joked one night. Careful, I yawned. Mom remembers your schedule better than I do. He laughed. She smiled politely. I looked at my phone too quickly. No one pushed it further, but the air shifted. Slight awareness. The kind families pretend not to see. After that, she pulled back a little. Subtle things. Fewer texts. Conversation stayed practical. Groceries, weather, Samir updates. No late-night check-ins. No lingering pauses. I told myself it was good. Appropriate. Still, I missed the pauses. One evening I stopped by unexpectedly. Samir had forgotten his charger. I said I'd drop it off. Simple reason. Safe. She opened the door slower than usual. Like she'd checked who it was twice. Oh, E. Her voice was warm, but cautious. That hurt more than coldness would have. I won't stay, I said immediately. Just this. She took the charger, fingers brushing mine again, brief, but this time she withdrew first. Quick, deliberate. Something in my chest tightened. You can stay for tea if you want, she added, almost out of politeness. I hesitated too long. Then, okay, just a bit. We sat closer than usual on the sofa, instead of the table. Not planned, just where the tray landed. The TV murmured some cooking show neither of us watched. She spoke first. We should be careful, I yawned. Not accusatory, not emotional, just careful wording. About. People notice patterns, she said, and I don't want Samir feeling strange in his own home. Fair, logical, responsible, but my brain translated it differently. Step back. Don't read into this. Yeah, of course, I said. Too quickly. Another pause. Longer this time. I noticed the tiny crease near her eyes, the way she kept smoothing her dupatta like it needed fixing when it didn't. I wanted to say something reassuring. Or distancing. Didn't know which was kinder. So, we're okay. I asked finally. She looked at me then. Really looked. Not avoiding. Not softening either. We're fine, she said. Fine. That word people use when they don't want to define things. When I stood to leave, she walked me to the door. Habit now. Familiar. The hallway light flickered slightly. We both noticed. Neither commented. I turned to say goodbye. Normal goodbye. Safe goodbye. But she was closer than expected. Not intentional, probably. Just a small hallway. For a second, maybe less, neither of us moved. Her eyes dropped to my mouth and back up. Mine probably did the same. Hard to remember clearly. Everything felt muted. Suspended. I almost said something. Almost leaned in. Almost asked what fine really meant. But footsteps sounded upstairs. Neighbor, probably. She stepped back first. Good night, I yawned. Soft. Final. And I left, carrying that unfinished moment like a sentence missing its last word. Friend Mom's concealed relationship that almost stayed secret. Part 4. Nearing the climax after that hallway moment, I tried doing what sensible people do. Distance. Fewer visits. Shorter replies. I even muted her chat once, just to stop checking whether she'd messaged first. It lasted 3 days. Then I unmuted it without admitting why. Samir didn't notice much. Or pretended not to. Hard to tell with him sometimes. Life kept moving. Work deadlines, grocery runs, late buses. Ordinary noise. Still, something restless stayed under the surface. Like a song stuck in your head, but you can't quite hum it out. The breaking point came from something stupid. Samir mentioned, casually, Mom's thinking of joining this weekend walking group. Some guy from her office recommended it. Apparently, he's super into fitness. He said it while gaming, not even looking at me. Just background chatter. I nodded. Normal reaction. Mature reaction. But the idea stayed longer than it should have. Her walking beside someone else. Laughing the way she sometimes did when she forgot to keep it small. Someone noticing the careful way she listened. Ridiculous. Not my place. Still, that Thursday, I texted her for the first time in weeks. Heard about the walking group. Sounds good. She replied after a while. It might be. Fresh air is overdue. Neutral words. No emojis. No extra lines. I don't know what I expected. Reassurance. Explanation. There was no claim to make. Saturday evening, I ended up near their street anyway. Errand, technically. But I kept walking past the corner until I saw her sitting alone on the small park bench 2 blocks from her house. No walking group. Just her. Thermos beside her. Watching kids cycle past. She looked up, surprised but not startled. I yawned. I gestured vaguely. Was nearby. She poured tea into the lid cup. Offered it. Same routine. Same quiet care. We sat without rushing conversation. Wind rustled dry leaves. Someone's phone rang across the park. Ordinary sounds. Steadying. Finally, she said, Samir told you about the group. Yeah. I didn't go. I didn't ask why. Didn't want to sound like relief. Even though some part of me felt exactly that. You don't have to rearrange things because of me, I said. The sentence came out softer than intended. She looked at her hands, turning the cup slowly. It's not rearranging, she said. It's noticing patterns. Again. Silence stretched. Then, quieter. You started disappearing. I thought maybe you were fixing what I didn't know how to. That landed heavier than anything before. I wasn't fixing, I admitted. More like running practice. She gave a small breath that might have been a laugh. Or not. You shouldn't have to run from my house, she said. Or for me. I watched a kid wobble on a bicycle, his father jogging beside him. Training wheels still on. Temporary safety. I wasn't running from you, I said. That's kind of the problem. There it was. Not a confession. Close enough to feel exposed. Her eyes lifted then, steady, searching. No panique. Just openness. Which somehow made it harder. I yawned. She started then stopped. Words rearranging behind her expression. We sat like that. 2 people who understood more than they were officially saying. I noticed the faint lines at the corner of her eyes. The calm strength she carried. The risk written quietly between us. And for the first time, I didn't look away. So what are we supposed to do with this? I asked, not demanding, not even loud. Just a question resting in the space between us, waiting to see if either of us would answer. Friend Mom's concealed relationship that almost stayed secret. Part 5. The twist: she didn't answer my question that evening. Not directly. Instead, she poured the last of the tea into the lid, handed it to me, and said, "Sometimes understanding something doesn't mean acting on it." Calm voice. Careful. Like she'd rehearsed that line privately before. I nodded. Didn't trust myself to push further. The park was getting darker anyway. Kids heading home, the kind of quiet that signals conversations should end even if they haven't. We walked back toward her street together. Not touching. Not quite distant either. That ambiguous middle again. Before turning toward her gate, she added, almost casually, "My ex called last week. About Samir. Nothing dramatic, just unfinished logistics." There was more in her tone than the words carried. History. Fatigue. Maybe caution. "Oh," I said. Brilliant vocabulary, as usual. "It reminded me," she continued, "how easily lines blur when people don't step back soon enough." That landed exactly where she intended. I slept badly that night. Not heartbreak. Not even sadness exactly. More like mental buffering. Scenes replaying. Alternate endings drafting themselves. The next week I didn't go over. No dramatic decision. Just excuses stacking conveniently. Work ran late. Bus delays. Laundry. Anything ordinary enough to sound believable. She didn't text either. Samir mentioned her once. She's been quieter lately. Probably work stuff. I nodded, careful not to ask follow-ups. Then, unexpectedly, she changed behavior in a different way. Not distance, formality. One afternoon she texted, "Hey Ayan, Samir said you might need those old textbooks you left here years ago. I packed them. You can pick them up whenever." Old textbooks. I'd forgotten they even existed. It felt symbolic in a way she probably didn't intend. Or maybe she did. I typed, "You could just give them to Samir." Deleted it. Typed again, "I'll come Thursday." Didn't send that either. Hope flickered stupidly for a second. Maybe she wanted a reason to see me. Then confusion replaced it. Or caution. Or both. Emotional whiplash. Fussed, quiet. Thursday evening came. I found myself near their street again. Not planned. At least that's what I told myself. Her living room light was on. Curtains half drawn. Familiar silhouette moving inside. Probably her watering plants. I stood across the road longer than necessary. Not dramatic longing. Just suspended intention. Phone in hand. Chat window open. I'm outside. Just for the books. Typed. Stare at it. Thumb hovering. Because stepping inside meant restarting something neither of us had defined. And not stepping inside meant accepting whatever pause we'd entered. Cars passed. Someone's dog barked. Life kept going without consulting my indecision. Eventually I locked my phone. Message unsent. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused. Like life forgot to finish the sentence. Across the street, her light stayed on a while longer. Then it switched off, and I went home without knocking. Friend Mom's concealed relationship that almost stayed secret. Part 6. The climax: the textbook stayed at her house for almost 2 weeks. Samir reminded me twice. Casual tone, but curious eyes. "Mom said they're still here, by the way." "Yeah, I'll grab them." I kept saying. I didn't. Until one Tuesday evening when my apartment felt especially small. Dishes half done. TV running something I wasn't watching. Phone silent except for delivery app notifications. Nothing dramatic. Just that familiar sense of unused conversation again. Before I could overthink it, I grabbed my keys. Her street looked the same. Always did. A stray cat near the gate. Faint cooking smells from somewhere down the lane. Porch light already on. Ordinary life continuing. I almost turned back once. Then I knocked. She opened the door quickly, like she'd been nearby anyway. Surprise flickered across her face, then settled into something softer. "Ayan. Hey. Sorry, late pickup." "It's okay." A pause. "Kumain." The textbooks were stacked neatly on the dining table. Of course they were. She'd probably organized them days ago. I ran my hand over the top one, just to delay speaking. Kitchen light hummed softly. The kettle clicked off behind us. She must have just made tea. Routine again. Comforting. Dangerous. You didn't have to avoid the house, she said gently. Straight to it. No accusation, just observation. I wasn't avoiding. I started then stopped. Honesty felt less exhausting tonight. Okay, I was. A bit. She nodded, like that confirmed something she already knew. I thought maybe you were protecting yourself, she said. Maybe I was protecting both of us, I replied. Silence. Not hostile, just full. I noticed her hands resting on the table edge. Steady, but not rigid. I realized mine weren't. Fingers tapping lightly against the book spine. I don't want to make Samir uncomfortable, I said. Or you. And I definitely don't want this turning into something messy. Messy happens when people pretend nothing's happening, she said quietly. That landed. I took a breath. The kind you take before admitting something small, but irreversible. I like being around you, I said. Simple. No dramatiken festchen. Just truth without decoration. And staying away didn't make that disappear. It just made everything quieter than it needed to be. Her expression didn't change much, but her shoulders eased slightly. Almost imperceptible. I like it too, she said. That's why I got careful. There it was, vulnerability without theatrics. Real, measured. Neither of us rushed to label it. No future planning. No big declarations. Just acknowledgement. Outside, a motorcycle passed. Someone laughed down the street. Life moving, as usual. She poured the tea she'd already made. Handed me a cup. Our fingers brushed again, but this time neither of us reacted like it was dangerous. Just contact. We can keep it simple, she said. Honest. And aware. Okay, I said. The word felt lighter than expected. She smiled, not wide, not shy, just genuine. And I found myself smiling back without thinking about what it meant or where it would go. For the first time in weeks, nothing felt paused. Just quietly okay. Friend mom's concealed relationship that almost stayed secret. Part 7. The conclusion, nothing dramatic happened after that night in her kitchen. No sudden declarations. No sweeping changes. Just small adjustments that, over time, started to look like a shared routine. I began stopping by again. Not every Thursday like before, not secretly either. Just naturally. Sometimes Samir was home, sometimes not. The difference was we weren't pretending those quiet conversations didn't matter anymore. And, strangely, that made them calmer. Months passed in that steady way life has. Samir got busier with work. I switched jobs. Farah. I finally stopped mentally calling her Samir's mom all the time. Joined that walking group after all. Turned out the fitness guy was just a retired uncle who talked too much about blood pressure. She told me that on our old park bench, thermos between us. Call back, I guess. Same bench where everything had almost tipped over. I almost didn't go, she admitted, pouring tea. Thought it would complicate things. And sometimes life stays simple if you stop predicting disaster. That became our unofficial rule. Simple didn't mean perfect. We still had cautious days. Moments where the age gap, Samir's presence, social expectations, all of it hovered quietly in the background. But nothing felt forbidden anymore. Just managed with care. Samir figured things out eventually. Not through a big reveal, more through observation. He didn't make a scene. Just one evening he said, while grabbing snacks, "You guys seem good for each other. That's enough for me." Then he changed the subject to cricket scores. Classic Samir. I don't think either of us forgot that moment. The permission in it. The relief. Our routines settled further after that. Saturday walks sometimes. Occasional grocery runs together. And a habit that surprised me most. Morning tea at 8:47 a.m. whenever schedules allowed. Don't ask why that exact time. It started once when her kettle finished boiling at 8:46, and we laughed about precision. It stuck. My apartment didn't feel as silent anymore either. Not because she filled it constantly, but because the option existed. The knowing. Loneliness shifted into something warmer. Still independent, still ordinary. Just less hollow. One evening, almost a year after that first rainstorm, we sat again on the park bench. Same thermos. Same soft dusk light. No tension this time, just familiarity. You realize, she said, this almost never happened. Yeah, I said. We were very good at almost. She smiled at that. Quietly proud, maybe. We didn't kiss dramatically. Didn't need to. Her hand rested over mine on the bench. Simple, steady. The kind of touch that doesn't ask questions. And for once, neither of us pulled away first. Life now isn't perfect. We still navigate logistics, opinions, awkward introductions sometimes. But it feels grounded, real, warm in that everyday way you don't notice until you remember how cold things once felt. Funny thing is, if you saw us from a distance, you'd probably just think two people having tea, which, honestly, is exactly what we wanted. And sometimes at 8:47 sharp, when the kettle clicks off and she gives me that small, knowing smile, I think some stories don't need to announce themselves.